Welcome to your preview. Lucas Oil Pro Motocross keeps rolling now into the Great Pacific Northwest. We'll be at Washougal, Washington, about a half hour outside of Portland, Oregon this weekend. Jason Weigandt joined by Ashley Reynard and multi-time series champ Grant Langston to preview the weekend. We cannot talk about the racing without talking about this track. Grant Langston, a lot of the tracks in this series have made their dirt kind of similar to each other. A lot of them bring in sand. They water it deeply in the morning. It makes a lot of the tracks feel the same week to week, except Washougal. So talk about what makes this track unique compared to the others.
Well, it's more of the natural terrain and the dirt that is there in the Pacific Northwest. And they've sort of kept true to what that track is, you know, all natural, through the trees. Like you said, it's got a very slick base, very tricky. Many a rider has gone down over the years, and some riders tend to excel at these sort of tracks, and other riders just seem to struggle a little bit. So the fact that where we just came from, Millville, I would say quite a bit different as far as the dirt surface is concerned. Coming to Washougal, quite a bit different. So once again, we've seen some mixed results. Are we going to see some more? I actually think we will.
Yeah, it's pretty much a tradition when you go to Millville after practice in the morning. All the riders are looking for traction. They know coming in they're going to have less traction, but when they actually feel how much different it is than, say, Millville, they all start scrambling. So that'll be fun to watch on a Saturday morning. We'll have coverage starting with practice coverage on Peacock, and then all four motos on Peacock as well. Ashley, I'll bring you in. Okay, so 6 times this year we've had a different winner in the 250 class, which is an all-time record. 5 in 5 races was the record. Now we've had 6 with Jeremy Martin. Ashley, do you think you might interview someone else that's winning a 250 race, or is it finally time for someone to stamp it and get a repeat win?
I think that there's definitely speed in a lot of other riders, and there's potential for us to have a different winner again, like Moseman last weekend really stepped up his game and was able to get his best career finish with the second, and he said it wasn't enough for him. So I'm curious to see how he went to work this week, and we've also seen some speeds from other riders throughout the pack, but I think we're due. I think we're due for a 2-time winner this season. It'd be a lot of fun to continue this streak and make history even more so in 2021, but I don't know, I kind of see a repeat winner happening this weekend.
Yeah, going 7 deep would be pretty difficult, although Moseman certainly is a candidate, maybe Joe Shimoda, someone like that. Meanwhile, Grant, Jett Lawrence has been in control, so to speak, leading the points all year long. He's finally coughed up the points lead. We've seen some frustration from him in some of his interviews, and a lot of it goes back to his starts, which have not been good, and then you put yourself in a bad spot. This is the pressure point now. He is dealing with challenges on the racetrack, challenges in the point standings. Things are not going his way. What obstacles do you see in front of him? Is this something he can overcome, or is this something that this is the way titles are? They're going to be hard won, and sometimes it doesn't work in your favor, because it has been tough on Jett the last couple of motos.
Yeah, I mean, like you said, it's been a little bit tough, but he's still right in it. So, you know, that's the good news. But on the weekend, I think what I saw was maybe that first little moment of youth coming out in him when there was that pile-up happening. Well, it wasn't quite a pile-up yet, but he said he saw people hesitate and he thought it was an opportunity to gain some time. And that, to me, was one of those moments where he kind of, not panicked, but should have just been smarter and taken the high road, backed off a quick second. Obviously, hindsight is always 20/20, but I think he threw away some valuable points there, and that might have been the difference between leading the points and not. So as long as he continues to learn and not repeat mistakes, I think the starts, when that's your main focus, I think it's only a matter of time before they improve or he figures something out. And then I think, obviously, for the competition, that's going to be a concern. But the other concern for him is there's a lot of blue bikes out there, and if things start getting down to the nitty-gritty towards the end of the season, he doesn't have a lot of allies on his side. Could be a factor, but I still think there's plenty of racing, and I think, to Ashley's point, we're going to start seeing some repeat winners now, and I think he's going to be one of them.
Well, Ashley, your other point over the weekend to Jett Lawrence was that he's probably going to be doing a ton of practice starts. You know how these riders work during the weekend, the type of work that they put in. Got to imagine he's been burning up some motorcycles, engines, clutches, tires, and everything else with the practice starts to get this fixed, right?
Yeah, and he's surrounded by a lot of great people at the practice facility that he's at to get really good starts and fast riders. So I imagine they're working pretty hard on that. But part of me also wonders if maybe that shouldn't be his main focus, because he might be too zoned in on getting starts and not thinking enough about his consistency and being up on the podium and everything else like that. So is he getting too frustrated when he doesn't get that start that he wants, that he's not able to ride like we saw him in the beginning of the season? Because from what I remember, he hasn't had a whole shot yet this season, and he's had really, really consistent finishes. So maybe he needs to take a step back and take some notes from Ferrandis and realize that the start isn't everything, and he can work his way through the pack.
Yes, we've definitely seen riders in a start slump, and then they fix it by doing less sometimes. Stop thinking about it, stop analyzing it, and just go on instinct. But it's going to be a challenge for the 17-year-old now. This is the most adversity that he's faced all year. One more thing, with Jeremy Martin winning, he's still not 100%. So now we wonder, was that just a home track bump because his parents literally own that facility in Millville where he went 1-1? Or is this something he can carry forward? I tend to think so, because this pressure, we're seeing it affect both Justin Cooper and Jett Lawrence. They're not putting in their best performances. I think the door's open with no pressure for Jeremy Martin to win more of these races. That could be really interesting down the stretch. Let's switch to the 450 class. First time we've actually seen Dylan Ferrandis a little bit on the ropes. But to me, Grant Langston, 2 crashes and recovering for 5th in Moto 2, that actually proves something, even though it's his worst finish of the season. What do you think of that recovery there in that moto?
Yeah, you're not going to always have great motos. There's very few people that can be like Ricky Carmichael and be perfect in a season. But, these things happen. And I think what you've seen so far this season is, because he's elevated his own bar, we expect so much from him. So now that he's not on the podium, people get a little concerned. I personally think, considering he had 2 crashes, it was a little bit scrappy by his standards, to come back to a top 5, salvage a decent overall. And of course, at the end of the day, he still extended his points lead from that round. So I think for him, it's all about just managing the bad motos and then capitalizing when you feel strong.
Eli Tomac wanted so badly to erase this bad first moto, good second moto thing, that even starting 35th in Moto 1, it still looked like he wanted to win it. He passed just about everybody, but kind of ran out of steam once he got to Ferrandis and Basha. Ashley, trackside, did you think at one point he was actually going to pull that off and maybe get that moto win and maybe finally turn everything around? He's turned around most things. Did you think maybe that moto win was coming?
It looked like it was coming for sure, because when he was out there just choosing lines that other riders weren't choosing, and making the track work for him no matter where he was going. And that's what Eli Tomac does best. And we've seen it over the years that he's won multiple championships. Eli Tomac, though, he spent a lot of energy in that first moto, and he admitted it up there on the podium talking to me. And then in the second moto, he said he didn't quite have enough in the second moto to put those drives on that we usually see him have in those second motos. So he said he was a little bit spent. So that charge that he had in the first moto definitely affected him come second moto, but still the most consistent we've seen him all season long. And I look forward to seeing him build upon that and see what he can bring for the second half.
Yeah, those words, second half, that is key. There is still half a season for Tomac to try to dig out his championship. It's not going to be easy if Ferrandis can still get 5th, even with 2 crashes. But you can certainly see that Eli's trying. He's trying to win these races, and the points would come with it if he can pull that off. We got to talk about Justin Basha here. Where did this come from? Grant, did you see this coming? Basha was 12th in qualifying practice. He was pretty good. He was on the podium at the last race at Southwick, but to hold off Ferrandis, and honestly, he kept Roczen honest all the way to the end of Moto 2. He didn't even have to. That was impressive. Did anybody see this coming, including you or even Basha himself?
I would expect Basha to have expected this coming.
Okay.
As far as me, yeah, I'm not surprised at all. I mean, like you said, in qualifying, yeah, he was 12th, so maybe on that day it was a bit of a surprise for some people. But he's been riding well. He's been looking good on that bike. And we've said it before, if you're off a little bit, it's been hard to get on the podium. And I think for him, it's just been a slow burn as far as just getting those results. His speed's been there. He's been closer to the front battles. He's battled in the front. But the way he did on the weekend actually was really impressive. Being under that amount of pressure, the whole moto. I think only Bosch is the only rider that can handle that sort of pressure and still hold on for the win. I mean, typically you would have thought it's going to happen. All right, it's inevitable. They're going to get him. And it just never happened. So I give him a lot of credit for that gutsy performance. But no, I'm not surprised, and I wouldn't be surprised to see him up there again.
All right, so we got yet another contender to add in. The only other rider that's won a race in the 450 class this year, besides Ferrandis and now Basha, is Ken Roczen. Good day, bad day. Grant, how do you rank that? He goes down in the first turn, looks really hurt. We thought maybe he'd be done. He comes back and wins a second moto. So that's a gutsy ride. Or is it, hey, if you're good enough to win Moto 2, you should have been good enough to score some points in Moto 1. I don't know how to take that. I've obviously seen, it's the internet, both takes. What do you see from Roczen's not finishing one moto and then winning the next?
Yeah, I mean, the way he got hit in that first turn, I think it's obviously really hard for people to say, he should have got up and got points. Maybe he could have, and maybe with the wind being knocked out, sometimes it really makes you feel like you're done. And then a couple minutes later, you feel a little bit better. But by that point, you're beyond the lap down, you're hurting. The last thing you really feel like is getting on the track. So I can understand a little bit where he was coming from, but that Moto 2 performance, that rebound, I thought was something quite spectacular, which is why the people are saying, well, if he could have done that second moto, what happened the first moto? Couldn't he got up and at least tried? So there's always two sides to every argument, but what I thought was really impressive was the rebound and the fact that he just reminded everyone he's still in this and he can win races when he chooses to.
Yeah, it's been said many times in this series. Jeff Emig, who won this title many times, said he'd take momentum over points any day. So not a good points day for Roczen, but he hadn't had a moto win in a while, so a little bit of momentum going into Washougal, and that's a track he normally rides well, providing the rib injuries that he suffered in that first moto didn't really start to kick in maybe the next day. That's how it works sometimes. So we'll see. We'll have all the coverage live on Peacock this Saturday. We'll be on Pacific time. Practice coverage starts at 10 o'clock local time, and then our motos start at 1. We'll have 4 straight hours of moto coverage. Tune us in on Peacock. For Ashley and Grant, I'm Jason. Should be a really fun weekend up in the beautiful scenery of the great Pacific Northwest.